An agency came to us and said, can you track a spy? My targeting material, you ready for this? Social Security number. What does that tell you about a spy? You don't know if it's a 14-year-old or an 85-year-old. You don't know if it's male or female. You don't know if it's Chicago or San Francisco or New York City, right? That was my targeting material. And we'll call you on the phone at different times and ask you to tell us where our spy is, okay? So, first call I got was like 3 months later at 12:30 midnight when I was out on the West Coast working in the lab. But when I first arrived, I was in San Francisco staying with a psychologist that we had working at the lab, a guy named Nevin Lance. So I'm staying in his home with him and his wife, and he gets awakened at 12:30 midnight. Hey, there's some guy on the phone that says he wants to talk to you. He woke me up. So I went to the kitchen and I answered the phone. Tell us where our spy is. So I said, okay, and I hung up, and I drew a picture of Altoona Pass down near, I want to say Palo Alto, but it's way further south than that. It's where they built the first group of wind generators. It's called Altoona Pass. So I drew hills, and I put in the towers, and I put the rotating things on them. And I drew dotted lines together. I said, it's a big electrical grid. It's collected by the wind. It's a wind generating area. And he's parked by the central tower in a rental car. That's exactly where he was. And it's a perfect drawing of Altoona Pass.
Over 80% of military remote viewing sessions produced accurate details about distant, unseen targets verified by physical evidence. At first glance, the premise of remote viewing seemed absurd. The idea that someone could describe faraway locations, hidden objects, or even details shielded with layers of secrecy, relying solely on their mind, felt like pseudoscience. Yet the U.S. military was serious enough to fund it, not just out of curiosity, but necessity. Reports surfaced that the Soviets had already invested significant resources into psychic research with their own specialized units. To keep pace, the U.S. decided to explore whether such techniques could give them an edge in intelligence gathering. Skepticism ran high, both from the public and even among military officials. But this wasn't some loosely managed experiment. Every effort was made to ground it in science. The Stargate Project brought in professionals, carefully conducting sessions under strict conditions. The participants, called remote viewers, were given minimal information, sometimes just a set of coordinates or a random number written on a slip of paper. This was critical. The idea was to prevent any chance of guessing or pre-existing knowledge interfering. Among the Stargate Project participants, one man stood out, Joe McMoneagle, a decorated Army intelligence officer with years of experience in Southeast Asia. Joe wasn't the type you'd typically associate with psychic experiments, but his disciplined demeanor and military background lent credibility to the program. While many might dismiss remote viewing as nothing more than an elaborate fantasy, Joe earned respect from skeptics by producing results that couldn't be easily dismissed. He didn't just make vague guesses or imaginative claims. Some of his sessions involved describing targets with pinpoint accuracy, details later confirmed to be correct by independent agencies.
What is the experience like? They tell you Hal Puthoff's standing in a spot, we don't know where he is, describe it. You go, how? They say, just tell us what pops in your head.
Yeah.
I mean, are your eyes open?
That's what's popping in my head.
Your eyes open? Are we
oh,
like,
yeah,
like right now?
We're talking right now.
And it's this image
it's just popping in my head.
How clear is it?
Clear as a bell.
Like you're there.
Like you're there. Only you don't know exactly what it is. Millions of crystals in piles everywhere. So the tiny little salt crystals are looking big to me, but there's big mounds of them. Okay? You understand? It's sort of distorted a little bit. But what you could say about it is absolutely clear. Mounds of crystals everywhere. Well, that's what salt is. And the color was bleeding, literally. The red was just this wavery kind of stuff bleeding through the enamel from years of sitting next to the salt, I guess.
Can you see the visualizations from different angles?
Yeah.
Can you walk through them?
Yeah.
Can you touch them?
Yeah.
And you can feel them?
I think where the mistake's made is in the term remote viewing. That implies seeing it. You kind of aren't seeing it, but you are. What it is, it's a compilation of all of your senses. Most people go into remote viewing thinking, I'm going to see something, and so they're totally and completely dependent on their eyes. It's not just your vision. It's your smell. It's your taste. It's your feeling. It's your emotions about it. It's everything that you could possibly sense if you were standing in the middle of it. Everything you could possibly say about it that's right, but it's as though you don't know. You've never seen it before in your whole life. You understand what I'm saying? It's kind of masked that way. So where they make a mistake is they make a mistake in naming things or having the need to say what it is. Nobody wants to know what it is. They want descriptors of it that come to you based on your senses, all of your senses. So if I'm doing a target, let's say it's a CIA guy, and he wants to know what this spy was caught in South Africa and turned over to our country, and he's a Russian spy. And when he was caught, they haven't been able to determine how he encrypted his messages going back to Russia. That's more important than catching the spy, okay? So they need to know that, so they come to us with that task. Tell us how he encrypted his messages. So they might write that out. How did the spy from South Africa encrypt his messages? And they put it in a double-wrapped opaque envelope, and they put A on it. And I go in a room, and they throw the envelope with A on it on a table, and they say, tell us about A. And I just sit there and think about it, and what pops in my head, I tell them.
But you don't know what's in the envelope.
I have no idea what's in the envelope. It doesn't matter. What happened over time, as an example, initially, they knew they couldn't send somebody to a place in Russia that they want to know about. So how do we get that? Well, we could use GPS locations. So they would write out the GPS site, and they would give that to the viewer. And I was nailing GPS sites like crazy. So they said, obviously, Joe has an eidetic memory, and he's memorized important GPS locations in Russia. No, that's not possible. There's too many. What is actually happening is I'm actually getting to the target without the GPS site. So to prove it, we said, okay, if you believe that, take the GPS locations, put them in a double-wrapped opaque envelope you can't see through. Don't say anything, just throw the blank envelope on the table. And guess what? You still get the same target, okay? So inevitably, somebody carrying a target from the CIA would show up at our office and they go, oh, geez, I left the envelope on my desk at Langley. And we'd say, okay, write down the target in the envelope I left on my desk at Langley. And guess what? Still works. So it's something else gets you to the target. What we think it is, and I wrote a paper on this 35 years ago, it's intention, attention to detail about the target, and expectation for outcome. And if you stop and think about it, if you don't have those three things, your job, no matter what it is in the world, is not going to work. That's how humans operate. It's how we think. It's where we go with our head. It's what gets us there. It's in everything we do, and nobody wants to believe it. And when I wrote the paper 35 years ago, they said, nobody cares about this paper. Today they're saying, oh, maybe it's one of the top 3 most seminal papers ever written. Why? Because every manufacturing company in the world, if they don't pay attention to that, they don't succeed. That's a simple recipe for how psychic functioning works. It's the same thing. It's where original thought is generated. It comes out of our mind is something we've never done before. It's new. It's creative. It's no one's ever thought of this. How could this possibly have not been thought of? Same place.
At one point, President Jimmy Carter inadvertently revealed a related incident to the press, letting slip the words, "We used our psychics." While his statement highlighted the program's potential value, it also increased skepticism and scrutiny. Despite these hurdles, Joe McMoneagle continued his work, often operating under layers of secrecy. But nothing in his career could have prepared him for the sealed envelope he was handed one day at the Monroe Institute.
Well, when it was tasked, I was sleeping in the industrial cube in Bob Monroe's lab at the Monroe Institute, because we had been working on going out of body and controlling it. And I was exhausted. So we've been working. This was Sunday, I think. And he woke me up, and I said, yeah, I'm awake. What's going on? He said, well, I have some people here from the Department of the Army, and they have a target for you. And I said, okay, what do you want me to do? He said, I have an envelope here. There's nothing written on it. It's in my pocket. Tell me something about it. So it started out with a really large pyramid. And I said, first thing, words out of my mouth was, this must be a new discovery. And he said, why do you say that? And I said, because it's huge. It's bigger than the pyramid at Giza. And then he said, well, tell me something about it. That's what I want to know. And so I said, it's got really large rooms inside. It's kind of surprising because the way pyramids are built, that can't be done. You can't have large rooms inside because of the weight of the construction. So it must be some new form of construction. So are you sure this is not a new discovery? And he said, just tell me what I need to know. I said, well, it appears to be some form of protection of survivors of some cataclysm. They're in stasis. They're waiting for somebody to come. I said, but I think it's too late. I think they're all dead. And he said, why do you say that? And I said, because I feel like the messages I'm getting are like leftover mental images, things that they pass differently from normal or something like that. So he asked me some other questions. He moved me around in the target and asked me some other questions and things. And it turned out there were 6 specific targets that I was given in that particular case. And all 6 of them I described exactly what was standing there. And when I say that, I mean what was also pictured in negatives by JPL, Jet Propulsion Laboratory, California. So I finally said, it's like a special race of people or something. I'm getting humans just like we are, but I'm not so sure they're humans like we understand human, because they're way bigger. So what do you mean? I said, they're like 10 feet tall, really huge, but they're proportionately the same and very human-like. I said, and the sun looks really weird. And he said, I don't care about the sun. Tell me more what's on the ground. So we basically finished the whole line of it. And I came out. I said, what's going on? And I was introduced to these people. And the guy that had brought them was Fred Atwater, my old training officer. So as far as I was concerned, it was an active mission because we were still doing remote viewing with the project. So I said, so where is this? Is this a new discovery or something? And he says, well, Bob's got the envelope. It has a target identified in it. And Bob said, oh, yeah, I got it right here. And he pulled it out of his shirt pocket and was opened it up as an envelope. Nothing written on it. And so he opened up the envelope, and inside it said Mars, 1 million years BC. It turned out I went to JPL, and I walked up to the counter, and I had the actual card that had the GPSs written on it. I think there were 7, and I just didn't do the 7th because I was too tired. I worked on it for maybe an hour and a half, and I was tired anyway from working all day. So I walked up to the desk, and the guy said, can I help you? And I said, yeah, I understand all the pictures taken in space belong to the American people. And he said, of course they do. It's taxes paid for them. I said, okay, I'd like to see all the pictures for these GPSs. And he took one look at the card and said, oh, that's the old city on Mars. and opened a drawer and pulled out a packet and handed it to me. And inside the packet are all the negatives. And I blew up the negatives, and guess what's in my book? Everything I described. An old fort, pyramids, big impact crater with a road running through it. There's a road runs straight as an arrow for 1,200 kilometers on Mars that go right through the heart of a huge impact crater. And where the road comes through, you can see where the impact crater has been modified to let the road through one side and out the other. Here's the thing that made it real for me. The outer edges of the impact crater, they know how tall the edges are of the impact crater because there's a half-inch of shadow line around them. And they know the angle that the picture was taken and from where, and the sun's position and all that. So they can tell you that the half-inch of shadow line around the outside edge of the impact crater tells you that it's 3,000 feet high, the walls of the impact crater. That's not really a super high wall on an impact crater, but what they don't tell you, and it's shown in the picture, is in the upper rim edge of the impact crater is a little triangular piece sticks out on the side of the impact crater. That had to have been put there by somebody. It's a construct. It sticks straight out at a perfect 90-degree angle.
Is it part of the pyramid?
No, it's part of the wall of the impact crater. So you got an edge up here, 3,000 feet up, and there's a triangular piece that sticks out and goes back in. And on top of that is a pyramid. It looks like a pyramid because you're looking straight down on top of it. The shadow from that pyramid that you're looking straight down on top of is 2.5 inches out. Now, if the impact crater has a half-inch shadow and it's 3,000 feet tall, how tall do you think that 2.5-inch shadow is? It's up there. I said to the guy at JPL when he showed them to me, I looked at it, I went, how tall do you figure this is? And he said, really tall. And I said, well, okay, how did it get there? It had to be put there after the impact crater hit, after that thing that made the impact crater had hit Mars. It couldn't have been put there before, because the impact would have
destroyed
blown it away. This thing is literally tens of thousands of feet tall. What the hell is it? And he said, well, a lot of people think it's a shard. It kind of grew there. And I went, I started laughing. But who built the support for it on the edge of the impact crater? Well, nobody knows about that. It's anybody's guess. So there's no doubt in my mind that what they're saying about this old city is true, because that's true.
Joe's descriptions would later draw eerie parallels to data gathered decades later by NASA images taken of the Martian surface. This revelation would push the boundaries of not only remote viewing's credibility, but also humanity's understanding of itself. What exactly had Joe tapped into? What if ancient civilizations didn't just thrive on Earth, but on Mars, 1 million years ago? This was the question that lurked silently behind Joe McMoneagle's remote viewing session at the Monroe Institute, though at the time nobody told him. After the session, McMoneagle approached NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory to share GPS coordinates based on his impressions from the session. NASA technicians reviewed the coordinates and almost casually referred to the location as the Old City on Mars. According to McMoneagle's account, he was then shown satellite negatives that matched elements he had described. The images revealed pyramid-like formations, geometric constructions, altered impact craters, and, most strikingly, a colossal structure. Its shadow implied a height of tens of thousands of feet, something not created by nature's randomness, but by deliberate design. What McMoneagle claimed to have seen in his remote viewing session took on new weight when paired with visual data from Mars. If his descriptions aligned with satellite imagery, what did that mean? Could these pyramids and other structures really be remnants of a sophisticated civilization? And if so, how had it disappeared so completely that its only traces remained buried on a desolate planet? The implications were staggering. If an intelligent species had once flourished on Mars, what happened to them? The vision McMoneagle shared raised questions about humanity's own origins. Were we Earth's first civilization, or could we share a deeper connection to Mars? One line of speculation even suggests that humanity may have migrated here, displaced from another world long forgotten. Moreover, McMoneagle's perceived beings, the dormant humanoids, hinted at an intimate connection between us and them. Were they our ancestors, or were they an entirely separate branch of evolution, now extinct? These questions defy easy answers and push the boundaries of everything we think we know about life and where it might exist. McMoneagle's experience wasn't just a glimpse into another world, it was a challenge to re-examine our own. If remote viewing uncovered the traces of another world, what else could this technique reveal about the mysteries of our own existence?